Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're doing something a little different. We're going to take a philosopher who lived 2,300 years ago and drop him right into a modern car dealership. Why? To answer one very simple question.
So, here's the big question, the paradox we're diving into. You've got Epicurus, this ancient Greek guy who is all about pleasure. What car would he drive today? You'd probably think a Tesla, right? Some luxury electric vehicle? Well, let me tell you, the answer is probably not what you're expecting, not even close.
Okay, to figure this out, we've got to meet the man himself, Epicurus. He lived way back in ancient Greece and started this amazing school called the Garden. And get this, it was a pretty radical idea for his time. It was a community that was open to everyone, and they all had one single goal, figuring out how to live a truly happy life.
Right, so when you hear that word Epicurean today, what pops into your head? Probably fancy dinners, expensive wine, a life of luxury. But here's the thing. That's a complete misunderstanding of what he was all about. His idea of pleasure? It had nothing to do with lavish parties or fancy gadgets. It was something way deeper, way more profound.
So, if it's not about luxury, what was his actual recipe for happiness? Well, it's actually beautiful in its simplicity. It really just comes down to two key ingredients.
The first big one, and this is crucial, is a concept called ataraxia. And what that means is total inner peace, an unshakable calm, a mind that's completely free from worry and anxiety. Think about a lake, totally still, like glass, with no wind. That's the mental state he was aiming for.
And the second part of the recipe? Aponia. This one's about the body. It just means the absence of physical pain. See, for Epicurus, the highest pleasure wasn't about adding exciting new things. Nope. It was about subtracting the bad stuff, getting rid of all the pain, both in your mind and your body. Happiness for him was that peaceful state you're left with when all the disturbances are gone.
And this is why he thought of philosophy as a kind of medicine for the soul. Seriously, he believed its whole point was to be a form of therapy, to cure us of the fears and anxieties that stop us from getting to that calm, pain-free state of ataraxia and aponia.
He even had a specific prescription for it. He called it the quadripharmaco, which is a fancy way of saying the four-part cure. And it was designed to go after the biggest things that make us anxious, fearing the gods, worrying about death, stressing about whether we have enough, and being scared of pain. His take on death is, well, it's pretty wild and actually very calming. Epicurus was a materialist, right? He believed everything, including our souls, was just made of atoms. So when you die, the atoms that make you, they just scatter. You're gone. You don't exist anymore. So his logic was, hey, you're never actually going to experience being dead, so why on earth would you spend your precious time alive worrying about something you'll never feel? Makes sense, right?
All right, so we've got the framework, ataraxia, peace of mind, aponia, no physical pain, and a cure for our biggest fears. Now let's take all that ancient wisdom and bring it back to our modern-day car dealership.
So at first glance, an EV seems like a pretty good fit, right? He would totally get the appeal. I mean, the silence of an electric motor? That's a huge win for ataraxia. Less noise, less disturbance. What about the clean air? Well, that helps with aponia by keeping our bodies healthier. And the idea that you could charge it with solar panels in your own garden? That's all about self-sufficiency, which was a huge deal for him. But not so fast. Epicurus wasn't the kind of guy to just jump at any shiny new thing. He'd do what he called a calculus of pleasures. Basically, he'd weigh the pros and cons, but in a really specific way. He'd ask himself, is this thing, this pleasure, ultimately going to bring me more peace, or is it going to create a whole new set of anxieties and problems for me? And when he runs that calculation, it leads him to a very specific and, pretty surprising choice. A choice that's guided by one of his most famous sayings, lethe biasas, which means live unnoticed.
This is the key. He would absolutely 100% reject a flashy, high-end electric car like a Tesla. And why? Because it's an anxiety machine. Think about it. You'd worry about it getting stolen, you'd stress about expensive repairs, you'd deal with the envy of others, and you might even get a little vain. All of those things are disturbances that just wreck your ataraxia. For him, a Tesla would be a non-natural and unnecessary pleasure, just way more trouble than it's worth.
And this quote just nails his whole philosophy. True wealth isn't about getting more stuff. It's about needing less. The real trick isn't to be able to afford the fancy car. It's to get to a point where you don't even want the fancy car.
So, the final verdict? Epicurus would drive something super simple, frugal, anonymous, A basic, no-frills electric car, something that just gets the job done, you know? Gets him from point A to point B without causing any drama or worry. It's a tool, plain and simple. It is not a status symbol.
But honestly, here's the most important part of this whole thought experiment. For a guy like Epicurus, the car would never be the point. Not even a little bit.
That little electric car, it's just a tool. It's the quiet, simple vehicle he'd use to get to the real destination, the thing that was the ultimate source of his happiness and security, and that was his friends.
See, Epicurus thought friendship was one of the greatest pleasures there is. Why? Because a strong community of friends gives you the ultimate security. They protect you, not just physically, but emotionally, from all that mental stress. The late-night talks, the feeling that someone has your back, that, for him, was the foundation of a peaceful, happy life.
There's this beautiful quote from him that just says it all. The car, it's just how you get to the party. But friendship is the party. It's the real, living, breathing source of joy and security that actually makes life good. So, what's the big takeaway here? After taking this ancient philosopher for a spin in the 21st century, what can we learn?
Well, his choice kind of pushes us to do our own calculus of pleasures. You know, to really look at the things we chase after. The newest phone, the bigger house, the faster car. Are these things actually making us happier and more peaceful? Or are they just fancier cages, trapping us in this endless cycle of wanting more, worrying more, and always feeling like we're not quite there yet? It's a heavy question, but one worth asking.
Hey, thanks so much for exploring the mind of Epicurus with us. And maybe next time you see some super flashy car, you'll think about this. Maybe you'll think a little less about the pleasure of owning it and a little more about the peace that comes from not needing it at all.